Hello, everybody. Today we're sitting down with Fraser Townley. How are you doing, Fraser?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Doing quite well.
Excellent.
And Fraser is the CEO behind RiotPWR, the mobile gaming controller that we took a look at earlier. There we go. Now Zoom is not making advantage into the ether. So, Fraser, how did you get started in mobile tech?
Well, I actually got started in the gaming tech many years ago. I don't want to reveal my age because one never tells, but 1984,
Oh.
I was involved in the UK with a company called Dixon's. We had launched a new category called home computing. And with home computing came the Sinclair ZX Spectrum, which was a small keyboard, but it allowed you to play games through. We used to record them on data. They were called data recorders, actually cassette recorders. They were little cassettes. Well, they weren't little. They were regular sized cassettes.
Yeah, you had to flip them on the B side sometimes to access the content. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I started in gaming, and then we progressed to the proper gaming machines that were coming out, the Commodores and the Ataris and what have you. I then left Dixon's and I joined another company, and it was while I was at that company we launched Sega and Nintendo into the UK market. So I was heavily involved in gaming.
Yeah, you were right there in the thick, and especially I'm thinking Sega especially was like had a really strong foothold in the UK for a while.
Well, so we actually helped Sega get to... The UK was the only country in the world where Sega outsold Nintendo. But I still had a good relationship with Nintendo. So, we had this... I was working... I say I was at the birth of home computing. I was at the birth of console gaming. And now I'm at the birth of mobile gaming. So we started, my engineers and I worked for another company from 2012 until about 2018. We created a product called GameVice. If you're not familiar with GameVice, the Razer Kishi licensed from GameVice.
Gotcha. It sounds familiar. The GameVice.
Well, the Razer Kishi should be very familiar to you.
Oh, yeah. I've got a Razer mouse right here, even.
Right. So the Kishi is the side-by-side foldable mobile product that they created. Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't create it. They actually licensed it from GameVice. And it was something my engineers and I worked on. But we left the company to start... We wanted to focus on mobile gaming, cloud-based gaming, not necessarily mobile gaming, which is why we focus heavily on a full-size controller as opposed to a compromised smaller controller. So this is not the model you've just shown. This is our Xbox version, but it plugs into your iPhone, and it allows you to play the cloud-based gaming. But we're the only. Let me take the stand out. We are the only iOS controller, MFI controller, that has an Xbox button.
I did want to ask about that. Are you working directly with Microsoft through that? Because I've seen you've even bundled months of Game Pass with the controllers.
Yeah. So so we're actually working with Apple and with Xbox to create this product, and it's a first. And it's also the only full-size controller that is direct connected, and we believe in direct connection, and this goes back a long way. This goes back to we were working with Gaikai. Do you remember Gaikai?
Yes, I actually used to I remember playing Alice Madness Returns and the Dead Space 2 PC demos when EA was using their tech to run through, I think it was GameSpot's website, and it felt like wizardry just how smooth that was back then. And I had a terrible rural American internet connection at that point. So
Gaikai, they actually ended up being bought by Sony. So Sony's back-end streaming service, which I don't think has launched completely yet, but when it does, it's using Gaikai's back-end. It probably is nothing like Gaikai's back-end anymore, because that was 2012. That was 11 years ago they bought it. Unbelievable. But we were working with Gaikai then, and Gaikai was saying, look, the only way to stream to a mobile device is if the controller is hardwired, because the latency of a Bluetooth to a mobile device and then the mobile device to the cloud, it becomes too complicated. And so that is those are initial conversations in 2012 with, believe it or not, it was Brendan Aribe, guy who went on to found Oculus. He was the COO of Gaikai at the time.
Oh, wow, I didn't know he was all the way back there.
Yeah, so he was telling us, guys, this isn't going to work unless it's hardwired. So we've been hardwired ever since. And, now that we have the Game Pass, and the Xbox is now, they've acquired Activision Blizzard now. That deal's now gone through. The UK regulators that were holding it all up, they went, okay, you got our blessing. So that deal's happened. I'm not telling you that everything from Activision Blizzard's going to be on the cloud, but when Xbox were asked in the press, does this mean no more Call of Duty for PlayStation? The response was an emphatic no. We are now in a content war, not a console war.
Yeah, they even agreed to bring things over to Switch, which Activision themselves had stopped doing a long time ago. The last one they released for a Nintendo console was, goodness me, it was Call of Duty Ghosts on Wii U.
Right. Yeah, so we believe, and this is what's in our DNA, that the gaming is going to go streaming, just like music and video have, with 5G and the developments of mobile telephony, coupled with the fact that everything is becoming more and more. It's all. I'll ask you a question. Did you know 50% of Netflix users use their phones?
I can believe
it's a huge number.
I can believe it.
Well, I now believe it now that you say it, but if you thought about it, you wouldn't. But that's why we believe gaming is going there as well.
No, I can definitely see it. I remember the statistics for when they were trying to compare all kinds of streaming things, and like even the 3DS, which you wouldn't think would be a device people would devote time into streaming various content. There's actually it was 3.1% of the user base, so I can easily see something much more accessible like a phone being used like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's not a compromised solution either. So we often say to people, if you hold up your phone where it would be if you were gaming or if you were watching a TV show, and then you hold it, I'm looking at my 50-inch monitor across the way there, that is completely obliterating because the aspect ratio, the 50-inch monitor. So this is, and yet there's more pixels in that screen than there is in the 50-inch monitor. So the intimacy that you get from gaming, and I don't want to say mobile gaming anymore, because when you say mobile gaming, most gamers think of Candy Crush and Swip Swipe Tap.
I know exactly what you mean.
But untethered gaming, how about that? Untethered gaming is more intimate, and you're actually getting the same equivalent visual as you would do if you were playing on a 50-inch TV 8 foot away.
I think people are definitely more receptive to that thanks to things like the Steam Deck. That seems to have finally gotten people around the idea that yes, you can actually have a quality experience in your hands. But I completely know what you mean, because I got very lucky to play the App Store before it became dominated by a lot of that free-to-play stuff for a while. Like, I still somewhere in my bins that you can't see, they're conveniently hidden here, is just...
looks like you're reaching into a time tunnel.
Yes. I have an iPhone 4S that the speakers don't work, but it can still play Dead Space Mobile and Infinity Blade and stuff like that. Back when a mobile game commanding like a $5 asking price and being a true solid gaming experience was just something that you expected. And it's interesting seeing that start to come back again. And that, like you're saying, there's Game Pass that's helping with that. There's the Apple services and everything. Do you think that just like the mobile player base, because there's a much wider audience there than even with traditional consoles, do you think they finally have gotten around again? The bell curve has crossed over again where they're ready for more traditional experiences as opposed to some of the more free-to-play, just click to spend 5 minutes affair?
So I think we actually saw a huge spike in awareness and sales when Fortnite came out on the phone. So you were playing the full game, albeit I believe the servers would identify if it was a mobile phone or a console, and then it would pair just mobile gamers with console gamers, but it was the full game. And that had a massive impact on awareness building. And it had a massive impact on awareness building for the controller, because that game was unplayable as a touch. Totally, sorry Epic if you're listening, totally unplayable as in touch. And then Call of Duty Mobile came out. And that is a phenomenal experience. Fortnite's no longer there, which is very disappointing, quite upsetting. But I understand the battle that they're having.
Yeah.
So, Battle of the Giants, go ahead. But we still got Call of Duty. We had Apex Legends for about a year.
I'm still surprised that they folded on that, because it seemed to be doing really well. It had less competition overall, and they just folded. That was very strange. And they had a Battlefield title in the works too.
I know. I actually believe it had something to do with the fact that you can play Apex Legends now on the Game Pass.
If you don't have to constantly keep up the additional services, I could see that. But I did actually test Call of Duty Mobile with the Riot when I was doing the review, and very smooth. And coincidentally, like you're saying, the matchmaking, we've just reached the point where it's automatic, where if you're using a controller on mobile, they automatically port you over to people with controllers as well. It's very nice and elegant, and keeps an even playing field for if you are, being sensible with a controller, or if you're brave enough to try to play Call of Duty completely with a touchscreen.
Again, I don't know why anyone would do that. It's just, but each their own. I'm not critical. I would encourage anyone who does it with touchscreen, try a controller.
I still don't know why there aren't more gyro options as well, because that would work great actually, because you have the little holder. There we go. And because I remember when Nova, do you remember Nova when that was a thing? Because imagine if you could pair the Nova gyro aiming system with holding it with the controller. It would be like the equivalent of having like the Wiimote aiming, but actually using a 360 pad.
So it's interesting because there are hybrids. So if you look at, but if you've ever played Real Racing 3.
I haven't gotten to that one yet, I'm afraid.
It's a great racing game. They've actually got the new Formula One edition of it. So you're playing Real Racing, but you can also have the Formula One. It's all their tracks and all the teams. It's fantastic. They allow a hybrid where you're using the controller for the gear shifting and the braking and the accelerating, but you can use the gyrometer, the gyroscope, whatever it is, the gyros that are in the phone to steer the vehicle. And I'm actually enjoying having that hybrid experience, because you do kind of, I don't know if you've ever done this, but when you're driving, you lean as you turn anyway.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating the way things are developing, and everything's moving very, very quickly.
Yeah, that's just, it's like, just with the M1 technology, they announced that Assassin's Creed Mirage and Resident Evil 4 Remake and Resident Evil 8 Village are all coming to iPhone now, and again, those are definitely experiences you're going to want a controller for. I mean, yes, there is a touchscreen option, but you have got to have very tiny fingers, and I do not. So I fully I'm picturing trying to get the aiming right with that, and that's...
The other thing that people don't consider is, by the way, this is how I've done it color coordinated so it stands out, but the stand is designed to clip on for when you're traveling, and it just unclips and plugs in. But what was I gonna say? Remind me. You have no clue what's in my mind.
We started with Resident Evil and how you couldn't fit all that onto a thing, and you were noting.
What I was going to say is you need to know where your fingers and thumbs are. I am not saying for 1 minute that touchscreen is inferior to. But when you I'm always careful about insulting people, but if you don't know where your fingers, I know where my thumbs are. And I don't need to keep looking to see where my fingers and thumbs are. When you've got your thumb on a glass screen, if you're not looking precisely where your thumbs are, you don't know if you're on the joystick or not.
Yeah, I feel like there was an art lost with that with a lot, because like I said, I remember Dead Space Mobile, they did it really good. They managed to make it be an entire survival horror that you just use 2 thumbs for, but that's just it. They made it just for the 2 thumbs. Then they had to compromise certain things like no inventory management and stuff like that to make it be viable. If you want something that is a straight up traditional console experience, yeah, you are looking at a lot more that you're constantly having to remember, because there isn't that tactile feel. I get you.
Yeah.
And speaking of, how did the RiotPWR itself specifically come to be? How did this powerful little controller come into existence?
Well, a lot of the so our expertise has been on controllers for the last 12 years now. And what we're doing is we're constantly thinking through what is it that the gamer wants and what can we do with technology? How can we bend the envelope, so to speak? So some basic call-outs that we have. So we have a patent for our device stand, and I have the black one here. So the device stand is, we had identified that traditional, and I don't want to name names, but traditional controllers that have a bracket, the bracket starts here and pulls out, and that creates
that's not a good balance.
Stress. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to find a way to secure our device stand, but have the device as inboard, as close to the center of gravity as possible. And I don't know if you noticed this, but when you have your phone in here now and you hold it, it's completely balanced. It's not trying to pull forward, it's not trying to pull towards you.
I even actually, at one point when I was working on something, I was doing a write-up, I had my phone still in there, and I just sat it down on the desk and had playing music there, and it worked like a perfect stand. And there are built-in stands for covers and all kinds of stuff that have not worked that well.
Right. So we paid a great deal of attention to that part of the design. And as I said, this having an inboard plugging in, we've actually gotten a patent for this. So that's one of the things that we focused on. The other thing we focused on is power management. So you're probably aware we have the power pass-through. So the power pass-through, if Apple doesn't know the brick it's plugged into, it chokes the charge down to a trickle charge.
Jeez.
Oh yeah. So what we do is we manage the power for Apple. So when you plug the power brick in here, we interrogate the power brick. We then pass that information, and Apple trust, that's part of the MFI, they trust that we're giving them the correct information. So you can fast charge with our device plugged in, which means you can play for as long as you like. You never have to stop and charge the phone or the device because you're doing it whilst you're gaming.
Yeah.
And that was one of the other things that we worked on is pulling the power. So there's no battery in here.
Mm-hmm.
So you're pulling the power from the device you're plugged into. You're only plugging as much power as a set of earbuds would use. But we're also pulling back out. So it's two-way. So we're pulling back out the audio so we can plug in a set of 3.5mm. Again, you don't want the latency of Bluetooth when you're gaming. Other than that, the technology that's in here, these are Hall effect triggers, so they're super quiet and super accurate. I think that's it on the feature set. We have a whole string of new features and new patents that we've been working on, and we'll have a new model next year which will have something that is entirely unique. Can't share it with you today, Elijah.
Very fair.
Sorry, but we will have a really unique. The other thing, the biggest. I'm going to show you another sample. So here, this is where our cable plugs in. This is a lightning cable. It's removable. You hit a pin into that socket there. This will come out. The black model that we're selling in Apple at the moment has two cables. This one's fitted with the USB-C. So this is future-proof. This will work with your iPhone 15.
Which is such a crucial thing for iOS devices, because think about just how many, like, the big fat, like, 4th gen to, like, 6th gen chargers that are piling up landfills now.
Yeah. So you just have to replace this cable. The product that we sell in Apple has the two cables in the box, so it's backward as well as forward compatible. We believe with 1.6 billion lightning connected iPhones out there, there's still a little bit of a market for our lightning products.
Yeah,
but we also want to be,
like, I'm still clinging on to my 8, so yeah, I feel like, because, like, I like having that little button.
yeah.
And I love that you're going into the various intricacies, because that's one thing that I was really wondering is just, the thought process that goes working into a controller. Because you've worked on so many different kinds of hardware, and you've seen the iterations over the years, because we've come so far in just like, to compare, like, a PS2 controller where it was built a lot more like a toy as opposed to the DualSense, which these triggers, they're trying to replicate the actual feedback of a gun now.
Yeah.
And that does bring me to one curious question I have, which is, so far the RiotPWR has very well replicated the Xbox experience, but would you ever consider providing it in the shape of, like, something more resembling a PlayStation with both analog sticks towards the center and or grips that might be a little bit longer?
So it's interesting. First of all, can I come back to your comment about toy versus...
Sure thing.
So tooling has different grades. There is a toy grade tooling where, emphasis is not made on how the flow goes of the plastic, and so what you tend to find is the older controllers were toy grade tools, and they were spray painted after they were done. Our products, you can see no flow marks on our products whatsoever. The texture is in the tool. These are not painted. This is as they come out. This is not toy grade quality tooling, which it's the same with PlayStation. It's the same with, but when you get the cheaper style controllers on Amazon, this seam here will rip your hands up.
Yeah.
Doing this on a cheaper controller, it's like running your fingers across a cheese grater.
You're afraid you're gonna have one of them pop out on you too.
Yeah. Also notice, no screw holes. It's beautifully tooled with no screw holes. If you want me to explain how we do that, I can. But I mean, that's the important thing is we put a lot into the design, but we also put a lot of money into the quality of the tool. Sorry, when you said
no, I
this
get you.
Toy, I was like, yeah, got to talk about that. But the original question was, why do we follow Xbox and not PlayStation? So a lot of design considerations are made based on how things can be made versus how things should be played. We believe we've gone down this is what the gamer wants, as opposed to this is how we can build it. And there's a massive difference. Now, I have nothing against PlayStation. I actually think the games are phenomenal. I loved I love playing PlayStation. In fact, I have one at home. So, I am a PlayStation gamer, but I don't know if it's the culture, the Japanese culture. I don't want to offend anybody, but I genuinely feel a lot of the considerations that went into the design was how do they engineer it, whereas the considerations we make is what does the gamer want and how does the gamer want to play.
Sure.
I'll give you a very good example. The original Game Vice had the joysticks on the outer part of the body, and that was done for a manufacturing consideration, not a design consideration for the customer.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I get you overall, and I agree on the most part, especially with currently with the DualSense, with the amount of power drain they have just for the little vibrations. Just be like, oh yes, it feels like you're walking on sand. It's like, yes, but my controller dies in less than a day. That is a little concerning.
Right.
Yeah, no, personally, it's just, for me, it's just like, with the size of my hands, I do tend to like having the thumbsticks towards the center, so that was my main curiosity point. But I also, the Xbox overall, especially with the most recent iterations, has gotten very comfortable. They've really tried to encapsulate all that, and I can see Zoom is threatening that we only have 5 minutes. Oh dear.
I have more time if you have more time.
Oh, I certainly do.
Okay, cool.
But we'll probably have to restart the call again quick is all. But all right. So one thing I actually, speaking of circling back, is how did the company get pulled into F1 and F1 gaming? Because there's a whole story there.
Well, I can make it a quick story. So I was... it goes back to 2019. And in 2019, there was a typhoon. This is a real roundabout story. There was a typhoon in Japan,
Gotcha.
which cancelled qualifying for the Japanese Grand Prix on the Saturday. And so the drivers had to do something. And Max Verstappen, the current world champion, had taken his Xbox and an LCD screen away with him and was playing, and he invited Carlos Sainz, the Ferrari driver, to play FIFA soccer with him.
Oh my word.
So F1 filmed to fill up the space. They filmed Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz playing FIFA. And I knew somebody at F1, and I wrote to them and said, "What are you playing at? The F1 game is so much better than FIFA. Why are you promoting another sport? You should be promoting your own." La 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 la. So they said, "Good point. Come and see us." And they sent me tickets to the paddock in Austin.
Fantastic.
I went to Austin 4 days: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I watched the Grand Prix from the pits, not seats, standing in the pits watching the race.
Word.
But while I was there, I took advantage of the fact that I'm in the paddock, not near the paddock. I'm in the paddock, rubbing shoulders with these drivers.
Yeah.
So I took a whole bag full of controllers, and if I could find somebody to rattle a cage, I was giving them the controller and telling them that you can play Fortnite, you can play this, you can play that. I can tell you, Max Verstappen got one in his hand.
There you go.
And was playing Fortnite during that weekend. But I got talking to the folks at Renault. And I got talking to the folks at Red Bull. So that's how I know the two. So we were plowing towards working on a deal. Then COVID hit, and during COVID, we had no idea if there was going to be a race. We had no idea. Nobody knew what was going on. So to cut a long story short, we didn't do a deal with Red Bull because they didn't care if it was. And hats off to them, but they said, well, our brand doesn't need. It's Red Bull.
Yeah.
So, but Renault did need. They did rely on F1. So we ended up doing a deal with Renault. Then they changed the name to Alpine. So we went through this turmoil. We'd made Renault controllers, yellow buttons and stuff like that. And then they came out and said, yeah, our colors are different.
Oh.
So we pivoted and created this product.
There you go.
And we had to, but this was for 2021, and at the back end of 2022, we still had some in the warehouse. So I said to the PR team, find a way to give them away, give them to a hospital, give them to do something. Yeah. And they came up with, let's give them away to radio hosts who want to do an interview.
There you go. I love that you're actually turning the controllers into their own playable business card. That is a genius play.
Well, I learned that lesson at Comic-Con. There was one year, and this was when we were at Game Vice. We were at Comic-Con, and we were selling the product. And the easiest way to sell the product is to game with it. People are curious, they want to know what you're doing, and you don't hand them the controller with your device in it. You hand them the controller and said, plug your device in. And 90% of people have a game that's compatible with the controller. They don't have to set anything up. They just go to their favorite game. And again, 9 times out of 10, it's either Grand Theft Auto or Minecraft. Oh yeah, so at Comic-Con, we became the biggest single store in the world for our product at Comic-Con because of the way we were selling it. We were just letting people plug their own phones in, and they were just off and play. And we get this when we go and meet buying retail buyers. You start telling them about the product and blah, 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 and they test it with their own phones, and then you sit there for 10, 15 minutes while they have an actual gaming session. So
that's one hell of a success there.
Yeah.
All right, and so COVID's happening. You're trying to deal with these extra units because of the rebranding situation with Alpine.
Well, no, we did the rebranding. We rebranded. We never sold. We just we liquidated. In fact, have you seen the ESL product that we did?
Yeah.
This was ESL's design, not our design. But this was the Renault yellow.
Ooh.
So we repurposed the Renault colors that we'd created for the Renault controller, and we put it into the ESL product.
Just to get to live on.
Yes. Yeah.
And speaking of, just making it accessible with everybody's various devices, I take it LudoMap is also internally worked on?
Yes, it's our excuse me.
Oh, no problem.
That'll be recorded, right? So LudoMap is our companion app. What we found in the early days, in actual fact, we discovered this a long time ago, is that, in fact, it was Best Buy. Best Buy said to us, we don't want to take your product unless you can provide a list of the games that are compatible, because not all games are compatible. So we created the list and put it onto a website, and then the app was just a web app. So it was just literally a link to this database on the web. However, what we discovered is as phones became more sophisticated and as the games became more sophisticated, not all games work on all devices. I'll give you the best example of that is Call of Duty only works on iOS 12 and above. And iOS 12 and above only works on iPhone 7 or 8 and above.
I believe so, yeah.
Something quirky like that. But our controller works on iPhone 5s with iOS 7 and above. So what you have is you have to find a way to aggregate the games that work with the user's phone with the user's operating system. So the app then, it's now become dynamic, and what it does is it interrogates what it's plugged into and only provides the games that work with that specific phone with that operating system. So it's gone from being just a basic database of games that are available for controllers to a dynamic database which works with the individual's phone.
The Excel spreadsheet has come alive.
It has come alive, but we also do other things. So within LudoMap, we can upgrade the firmware, which we do from time to time. You can test your controller, so there's a test suite in there. Plus, we offer tips and cheats for for the games that you can be playing.
I didn't see
and
that.
we rank the games, so we can categorize the games by price. We can categorize the games by genre. So it is. You're right. The database has come alive.
That is incredibly helpful too, because I remember when Abigail first contacted me about the unit. I'm like, okay, I'd like to pre-install some stuff so I'm ready to go when this arrives. What should I get? And she's like, install the Ludo app. It'll help you.
Yeah. And there's something weird about not weird, but there's something magical about the app. It's gone viral because you don't need to have our device for it to aggregate for you.
Excuse me, just 1 second.
Sure, sorry.
Apologies. I've got 3 pages worth of allergies. My body hates existence.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So LudoMap is working in every country that you can access the App Store, which is every country. There are only 2 countries in the world where users haven't started using LudoMap. North Korea and Eritrea. All other countries in the world have been using LudoMap.
There you go.
Obviously, there are big countries. The United States is our biggest, but then all the European countries and most countries in Asia, we have customers in those countries using our app on a daily basis. It's quite phenomenal.
Yeah, my word, yes. I'm curious, have you received any region-specific requests as far as feature sets or anything like that?
The most requests we get are from users who want our controller to work with certain games that it doesn't work with. So, for instance, PUBG is not control compatible. You cannot play PUBG with a controller. And so we get customers writing to us saying, hey, wouldn't it be great if your controller worked with PUBG? And our response is always, no, it'd be great if PUBG worked with controllers.
Yeah. There's actually a similar issue that's been going on right now. It's actually a bit of a controversy with Rainbow Six Siege. I don't know if you know, but like, there's been the growing market for middleware, so you can use a mouse and keyboard with your console if the game doesn't natively support it. They've literally implemented code now to worsen your latency and input if you want to use a mouse and keyboard on the console with Siege, and it's just like, isn't crossplay already a thing? Why are you... This is a really weird thing to be fighting.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
it doesn't make
wild.
sense, but I've learnt the hard way not to comment on other people's strategies.
Very fair.
I'll talk about mine.
There you go. And as you said, you've had such a storied history with the evolution of how gaming has come. And what would you say is like a lesson that has stuck with you from the very beginning to today, far as developing new hardware?
The biggest lesson, actually, and I haven't had to think long about this, have I? The biggest lesson I have learned is do not get caught out with technology creep. So technology creep is where you develop this product and you're about to go to market, you're about to go into production, and a new technology comes along. Okay, let's hold everything while we put that new technology on. And you develop that, and then you just about ready, and another new technology comes along, or another possibility or capability. We have been extremely lucky in... I don't want to say we've always been ahead of the curve, but we have, and I suspect it's got a lot to do with the relationships that we have with different folks. But we were the first to come out with L3R3 on our MFI controller by a long way. I mean, people have these development cycles that are so long that it took about a year for everybody else to catch up with us. But L3R3 became a really important feature. I mean, it is an important feature of gaming. Yeah. But it was always outlawed in MFI controllers. MFI would never allow clickable thumbsticks.
Do you know why?
Again, I've learnt the hard way in trying to predict why people do things. I don't know. I actually don't know. I actually don't have a theory. But when they said clickable thumbsticks are okay, we were just putting the final touches to... Actually, this is the original, the Rotor Riot, not the RiotPWR. We were originally Rotor Riot. And so we were putting the finishing touches to this product when the allowance to have clickable thumbsticks came through, and we just dropped them in there. And then caused a bit of a stink because Apple hadn't actually, they didn't think anyone was going to come, and they hadn't put it into the OS.
Oh dear.
And so we worked with Apple, actually. We worked quite closely with them. We gave them a lot of samples to work with to get that implemented. Does the industry owe us anything for that? No. But it was just one of those things. So yeah, technology creep is a big problem for everybody. Forget the gaming. But it's especially important in gaming because there is always new things coming along. There are always new technologies. There are always new features, because you're actually working with a really interesting dynamic. You've got game developers pushing the envelope or demanding that the envelope gets pushed so they can do better games. And the folks that are building the hardware are like, they're doing the same thing in reverse. They're pushing the games, because the better the game, the better the hardware. The better the hardware, the better the game. So it's like this ping pong. Actually, have you ever seen a witch's staircase?
Witch's staircase? No, I'm not familiar.
So a witch's staircase, they're I'm in New England right now. They're very common in New England homes, old antique homes. And it's where the stairs aren't like this. The stairs are the right foot, then the left foot.
Oh, now I know what you mean. Yeah.
They're called witches' stairs because witches are not supposed to be able to walk up them. So the patriots, they built all their homes like this so the witches couldn't come. I mean, ridiculous. But imagine hardware, software, hardware, software, hardware, software. So you've got this witch's staircase scenario going on. And so therefore, if you're not in step, you will never get to the top, because you'll always be, okay, let's not launch just yet. Let's
Duke Nukem Forever, that's a software example, but still, yeah, it's just like, if they had just launched with Unreal based on what people have played with the leaked build, it would have been a classic, but instead, just, boom.
Yeah. No other lessons, though. I've learned nothing from this game.
And on a lighter note, as someone who's watched all of these games come out, what would you say are your top 3 favorites?
Games of all time?
It can be current top favorites, it can be of all time, whichever you prefer. Just like, what are the 3 that have resonated the most with you personally? Doesn't matter what the Metacritic score or anything else is.
I remember the game that I played the most all time, I would have to say it was Tomb Raider. It got me into PlayStation. We had, so the very first, the 1 and 2 came out on mobile. You could, did you see that? What's that all about?
Suddenly balloons to celebrate Tomb Raider.
There you go. So Tomb Raider was also available on iOS for the longest time. It's not anymore. So we would constantly be using it to test our controllers and to demonstrate our controllers and so. So Tomb Raider for me has been something quite. It's an exceptional game. It started a genre. It launched a platform. I love that game. I love the racing games. Real Racing 3, I guess, is a it's a window into my thoughts. But the F1 Mobile is a fantastic game as well. I love Riptide because it's a racing game, but it's a racing game with a distant difference. You're racing on jet bikes. So racing games in general, I love. That's 2, isn't it?
If you want to go,
no. Well, I've got to say, anything with Mario.
Interesting.
Mario Kart, my love of racing, but Mario World, Mario's all of us, and through the genre. So I've had the Game Boys, the Game Boy Advances, the
DS's and so on.
Yeah, exactly. So I've played them all, and in fact, I found. Do you remember the little silver? It looked like a flip phone.
Yeah.
I think actually was that the Game Boy Advance?
It was I believe they called it it was like the Game Boy SP or something like that. Like it was an advance, but it was like they gave it some special classification, and then they got even weirder with another one after that was like it was like a candy bar shaped one that could do all.
Oh yeah. Yes, no, this is the one that looks like a flip phone.
Yeah, that was, I believe that was the SP.
So I found that in my office drawer at home the other day with its charger. So I had plugged it in to charge it up and forgotten about it. So about a week or two later, I was doing something, I don't know, rearranging or whatever. And then, oh my God, I forgot I'd plugged this in. It was behind a load of books. Pulled it out, started playing it. My young son looked at me and was like, "What is that, Dad?" I said, "This, son. This is how it all began." Yeah, no, any Nintendo have done an amazing job with their it's all about the game. They seem to focus on hardware as if hardware's where it's all at. It's not. It's their games. It's the games that make their hardware worth having.
Oh yeah.
But if you think about this, if you could play Mario Kart, and you can to a degree, but if you could play Mario Kart with a controller on your iPhone, wouldn't you do it?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, that's just, it's why, I mean, the whole Retroid Retroid's one of them, but like the whole handheld scene for emulation that is so popular because just, yeah, people want that now, and I'm glad that Nintendo is starting to tap into that a little bit with like the World Tour thing and everything, but they still are a little bit hesitant, but
They still touch.
Yeah.
It's not controller.
Yeah, it's...
But they've got the horsepower they'll ever need in the phone.
Yeah.
Focus on content.
Yeah. It's a wild...
I mean, with streaming now, if you're playing in the cloud, I mean, again, I'm not being biased because this is our strategy, but if you can, we have got, so I've got prototypes in the next room of TVs that will play Xbox streaming. Because all you're doing is you're taking whatever you do in here, you put it in a TV. You don't need an Xbox.
No, I get you.
Therefore, you shouldn't need a Nintendo, and you shouldn't need a PlayStation.
Yeah, it would be nice to have something that didn't take up half the size that the PS5 does. That would be nice.
Right.
And I do understand what you mean, because, like, I still live in an area that doesn't have the best internet, so streaming hasn't always been the best option for me, but I do remember when I still was just working off of an Xbox One, and I was able to stream The Outer Worlds, the Obsidian RPG, and it was nice being able to get a glimpse of what it would look like on the series console while playing on the Xbox. And every now and then there was some stuttering, but yeah, it was like a really nice way of seeing what it could be like and not having to worry about the install space and stuff like that. I definitely see where the potential is going there, and I'm really curious to see how it evolves, because yeah, it's just
and it is going to come. High-speed internet will come to you. I get it. Rural areas aren't getting it as quickly as the urban areas, but you know, Starlink is Elon Musk's satellite company. He's about 200 satellites away, and that doesn't, it sounds like a lot, but he's got 2,000 satellites already up in orbit. He's that close to having global broadband internet that you can play on planes. It's that good.
I'm just it reminds me of Nikola Tesla wanting to literally just throw out electricity everywhere so that people could just wirelessly hook up anything. And it's definitely something where I'm curious to see where it all plays out, because yeah, it's just, there's some very exciting potential. That said, we have actually covered all of the questions.
That's great.
But I did want to actually mention two things, because you actually reminded me of two things that I think you might actually get a kick out of. Are you aware of Open LoRa?
No.
Fans have so the original core design Tomb Raider has been made open source. It's even playable in a browser now. You can actually load the levels straight for, if you have the file on your computer, you can load it up in your browser. Some absolute mad lad, even guy working on GBA, he managed to rewrite the entire code in BASIC so they could get us like a solid 20 frames per second on GBA. Let me see if I can find that.
I'll definitely look into that, because one of the things that and I say we, I mean the whole company, was just like saddened when the Tomb Raider 1, 2. So the Tomb Raider 1 and 2 was on iOS in the App Store.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, I have not updated one of the tablets that we have here for testing purposes.
Respect.
So that you can still have. So it disappeared. They were working on Tomb Raider 3 and then it just disappeared.
Yeah.
And there was some weird licensing shenanigans going on, because Square Enix and Core had licensed it to somebody else who had played with the I don't know if this is true, this is what I heard, this is what I read on Reddit or whatever, that somebody had interfered with the code to make it work, and that was against the license, so they removed the license and aren't prepared to relicense it to somebody else, because we even tried. It was like, well, we'll take it over.
Oh, word.
But no, so Open LoRa sounds exciting.
Yeah, no, it's just they managed to get. I think it's up to Chronicles now that you can actually just get running pretty much on anything with it. But like the homebrew scene has gone nuts. The other thing, I should be able to just send you a link through Dropbox quick, but yeah, I'll pop it into chat here. It's by a really cool indie developer, Sean Noonan. He's worked on all kinds of things. And there was a game jam, and it was all about trying to create alternative first-person experiences, not something that's just straight-up Call of Duty. So he made what if you followed all of Nintendo's guiding principles, what would a first-person Mario game actually look like? And he managed to deliver it. And amazingly, they didn't copyright strike it or anything, because it was just this small little time trial thing. It's just one world, but he made everything by hand and what have you, and it just like, since you love to try everything Mario, I doubt you've ever seen a first-person Mario with a plunger dispenser.
This is fantastic. I shall give that a whirl.
But thank you so much for sitting down with me for all this, and
it's my pleasure. Thank you for. I mean, I've actually had a thoroughly enjoyable, engaging conversation.
Likewise.
And I look forward to seeing the recording so I can find out what I actually said. I can quote you on that, right? I can say, Elijah said, "You're fantastic."